Leaked Facebook documents are revealing scathing new details about the platform's misinformation battle. Journalists, including many here at CBS News, reviewed thousands of pages of internal research and employee comments suggesting Facebook knew its platform fueled division, hate, and conspiracy theories, but at times did little to stop the misinformation from spreading. This comes as Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen appears before the UK Parliament today. British lawmakers are considering an online safety bill following her allegations about the company's policies. Before leaving the company, Haugen photographed documents detailing Facebook's failure to keep people safe and recently testified before the U.S. Senate. So joining me now is Harvard constitutional law professor and attorney Lawrence Lessig. He is also assisting Frances Haugen with legal and communications help. So thank you so much for joining us. So we have this sort of trove of data and information coming out of Facebook. One of the more shocking pieces from the documents that were released is Carol's journey into QAnon, where a dummy account is set up and it starts attracting within 2 days, conspiracy theories and misinformation. And then the thing about it is nothing was really done. It didn't actually the Facebook didn't react or respond by changing anything. So I want to ask you, why did Facebook not respond? And is this part of a pattern within Facebook, getting the information, but then not reacting or changing algorithms or doing whatever they need to do to correct the problem?
Well, Facebook faces a choice, and they've known about this choice for many years, that they can either make their platform safer, less likely to harm people or drive to misinformation or radicalism, or they can make their platform more profitable. And what Frances's documents demonstrate is that again and again, when Facebook was faced with that choice, Facebook chose profit over safety.
Mm-hmm. The documents show that the company knew how toxic the platform could be. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has repeatedly denied Haugen's claims. What is Facebook's argument? How can it deny that some of their algorithms push users to extremes? How do they sort of explain it?
Well, they don't really deny that sometimes it pushes people to extremes. They argue that most of the time it doesn't, which is like a tobacco company saying, 90% of people don't get cancer from cigarettes, so there's no problem with cigarettes. What's striking here is the engineers, who are incredibly decent people from these documents, they come out as the real heroes. The engineers inside of Facebook again and again pushed Facebook to change their algorithms or to make their platform safer. And again, the public policy types from Mark Zuckerberg down refused to make those changes because they knew it would undermine their profitability.
Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. What's happening in the UK is very interesting to me. What we have seen is Europe has been much more aggressive. European lawmakers have been much more aggressive when it comes to curtailing the access to our personal information that a lot of these platforms have and other things. So now the UK is looking into, Haugen's testimony. They want to draft an online safety bill. How will Haugen's information further shape the UK's bill?
Well, I think what Frances's documents demonstrate is something people have thought was true for many years, but now we absolutely know it's true, that the choice inside of Facebook is not in favor of the safety of customers, but of their profit. So this will motivate legislators to step up, because who else is going to do it? We know from these documents we can't trust Facebook to do it. And if we know that there's real harm, which we do, that means we need legislators to step in.
And the other issue, too, is about transparency. Up until what Frances Haugen had revealed to us, we sort of had to depend on Facebook to say, trust me, we're being transparent. And I don't know how many times I've heard, a Facebook executive testify in front of American lawmakers and saying, well, that's something that we're working on. We're working towards being more transparent, and so throwing out sort of one example of how they've made progression in that area. So I assume that some of what Frances Haugen is going to tell UK legislators is going to help them in terms of crafting tools to encourage or get this research from companies like Facebook?
Yes. I mean, we've seen many examples of ways that this company can be made more transparent. Even in the United States right now, legislation is being considered to make the company reveal these data so that we have a clearer idea of, in fact, what the safety consequences of their algorithms are. And their refusal to do so in the face of this evidence that they have made this choice against safety again and again, I think will weigh heavily in the minds of legislators across the world when they begin to think, what should we be demanding of this extraordinarily important platform that has been wired now into the lives of billions of people across the world?
Who should we blame for this? Is this just, we've all kind of become slaves to the algorithms, and, we as users and consumers have to also display some sort of intelligence when we interact with Facebook and other platforms, but Facebook is what we're talking about now. Or, are actual individuals also responsible? Is Mark Zuckerberg responsible for the outcomes that we see here?
Well, there's no doubt that Mark Zuckerberg took a central role in making many of the decisions that led to the platform being less safe and more profitable. And there's no doubt that people, individuals, parents need to take responsibility for the way they and their kids interact with the platform. But we can't miss the fact that the Facebook platform is a manipulation engine. It is a monster manipulation engine. We could think of it as these AI technologies, these computers that are focused on one question: how do I get you to spend more time on the platform? So when Facebook's Instagram platform feeds body dysphoric images to 13-year-old girls who themselves have body dysphoric challenges, the platform's not doing it because it's wanting to be evil or because somebody wants to drive a kid to suicide. It's doing it because the platform knows if it feeds those images, the child will use the platform more. And this is not because anybody is trying to destroy anybody's good health or well-being. It's because the platform is focused on making money. And this is the way the computer figures out how to make money. And we are vulnerable, all of us, to this kind of manipulation.
Lawrence Lessig, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So in a statement, Facebook told CBS News, "We're a business and we make profit, but the idea that we do so at the expense of people's safety or well-being misunderstands where our own commercial interests lie.